It was the best day of my life when I earned that title, Marine.
I was only 19 years old and I was completely motivated.
I don't feel that the military was ready, but I feel that there were a bunch of females that are ready.
I haven't told this to anyone.
I distinctly remember saying no.
He forced me down to the ground, had my shirt off.
He groped me and he did things to me that I was not willing to let him do.
I'm sure he doesn't feel guilty.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this next topic is a very serious topic. This is shedding lights on women of war about sexual trauma in the military. Today we're going to discuss these issues, and we have Phil Valentine, who also did the documentary of Women of War. So please help me welcome my next guest, Phil Valentine. Good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Hi, Phil. Glad to have you on the show today.
I'm so happy to be here on the very first Vanessa Jackson show. That's pretty exciting.
Great. Thank you. Well, Phil, I brought you here today, because we want to shed some light on some serious topics about women of war. Mm-hmm. And when you say women of war, what comes to mind to you?
Well, when I say women of war, I think of female combat soldiers, airmen, sailors, which is something relatively new because back in Vietnam and before that, women were more in a support role. They were nurses and they worked very far behind the lines, even though they were still in danger. But now, women in the military are actually fighting in combat alongside men, and that's very new.
So, Phil, let me ask you, what prompted you to bring awareness to this topic?
Well, we were going to do a documentary on how combat post-traumatic stress manifests itself differently in women than men. That was the intent. It wasn't about military sexual trauma. I had never heard about military sexual trauma.
Right.
The first woman that I interviewed broke down in the interview and talked about being raped in boot camp. And she asked me, she said, "Have you ever heard the term military sexual trauma?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Do yourself a favor. Every woman that you interview for this documentary, I want you to ask them if they have ever been sexually harassed or assaulted during their time in the military." And every single one of them except 3, and we interviewed a lot of women, had said that they had all been either harassed or assaulted, and most of them had been assaulted.
So do you think this topic is something that's covered up or people are afraid to speak about it?
Both of those things, yes. 80% of the women who are assaulted don't report their assault for lots of reasons, mostly because they feel like they're either not going to be believed or they're going to be taken out of their role in the military.
So how does the Band of Brothers atmosphere affect abuses prosecution?
Well, that's an interesting question because in the military, everybody uses that term, the Band of Brothers.
Okay.
And that's really where the snowball of sexual assault begins to roll because the military, since its inception, has been designed to train men to fight in combat. It was never designed to train men and women to fight in combat. Since the beginning, the military has broken its men down by humiliation and intimidation. And the way that they humiliate you usually, and this happens in sports as well, but in the military, the way they humiliate you is by referring to you in a derogatory female term. When they say, "Come on, ladies, let's go. Come on, ladies," a little bit faster, and some of the words are even harsher than that, as you can imagine. That doesn't cause sexual assault, but what that does is it starts the snowball rolling, and men start to think that anything female is weak or inferior. And that's where the snowball begins to roll. Now, also in the military, you also learn that violence is an acceptable means of a solution to a problem.
Right.
It's the military.
It's the military, absolutely.
You combine those two things together, and then there's, I wish it was a very easy answer, but it's like a plane crash. When you investigate a plane crash, you find out it's not one thing that went wrong. It's 10 things that had to go wrong in a specific order for something so horrific to happen.
I agree.
And that's exactly what this is.
Is there hope? And is there something that you think that will affect this change?
There's absolutely hope. And what a lot of people don't understand is that the military doesn't change its own rules. Congress decides the rules that the military has to follow. So in order for this to change, and it has to start with the training, it's the American people who have to call their congressman and demand that the training in the military be changed to incorporate a more sensitive program to women.
Okay, well, thank you, Phil. Everybody, Women of War is out on DVD right now, and if you haven't seen it, please get it. This is something that really needs to have light shed up on it more and more every day to help these ladies. Thank you, Mr. Valentine, and please keep up the amazing work that you've been doing.
Thank you, and thank you.